We're just 2 days out from the release of Raids 3, and the Old School team did a live stream today where they talked about some of their experiences making and playtesting these specific bosses, and they also shared a few insights into some of the boss fights and mechanics that we had never heard before. So in today's video, I'm actually going to quickly run through and summarize some of the new stuff we heard in today's video, and at the very end, I'm also going to cover death mechanics and how those are going to work in Raids 3. And we'll go ahead and kick off the video the same way they kicked off the live stream, and that is with Akkha. And it sounds like we are definitely in for a special boss fight when it comes to Akkha, because there is a general and very overwhelming consensus that this is the most difficult out of the initial 4 bosses. So difficult to the point that they actually had to nerf it a little bit after the initial playtesting because they were just getting demolished. But when it comes to boss mechanics, what we found out about Akkha was that there is going to be a ton of combat style switching within this boss fight. Within the initial teasers we had of Raids 3, we actually saw pictures of Akkha already protecting from range and melee, but it sounds like that is not going to be the case throughout the entire fight. It sounds like he's going to switch protection prayers, and it's going to be a constant battle of switching between maybe phases or completing certain tasks and swapping between different combat styles to kill him. They said Akkha honestly felt like the final boss before they tested the final boss, so it definitely sounds like this isn't going to be an easy fight whatsoever. One cool aspect of Raids 3 is that all of these bosses actually have brand new unique mechanics that have never before been seen in Old School, and Husky actually goes on to say that Akkha's is probably the most difficult out of any of the other bosses. And as a perfect headway as we jump into the next boss, which is Zebak, one mechanic that both of these bosses share is the ability to kill your teammates. They said teamwork is very crucial at both of these bosses because there are mechanics where you could literally just grief people within your team. But other than that, when it came to Zebak, there was a pretty overwhelming consensus that this was by far the favorite boss by almost all of the mods. Although we really didn't find out anything else in terms of specific details about the boss fight with Zebak except for the fact that it's going to be pretty chaotic. But one cool thing we did learn is there's actually going to be like an Easter egg within this boss fight. Apparently there is some type of mechanic that serves absolutely no purpose, but you have to do something to trigger it. Initially Husky thought it was a bug when he did it on accident, but outside of that we don't know exactly what it does, how you even know you're doing it, or even what will trigger it, but Mod Max said that he does believe players will figure it out. But moving on to the third boss, we have Kephri. In Kephri, we really didn't get basically anything in terms of specifics about their experiences with this boss. Really, the only thing we heard was that it is not a chill boss, but they also talked about the animations and how they're absolutely insane, and how they can't believe they were even physically possible within Old School, so I'm definitely really interested to see what those do look like. But now for the fourth and final boss, we have Baba. The one thing we learned about Baba is it has a core mechanic that when paired with one of its invocations, packs some serious KO potential. Husky said it was his favorite invocation and he called Mod Mac a genius because he could not be more excited for watching some hardcores try to take on this boss. I imagine this core mechanic is probably going to be pretty dangerous itself, but when paired with an invocation is basically almost always lethal. But ultimately, that's something we won't know until the actual release day and we find out a little bit more information. There is a final twin boss that we know absolutely no information about whatsoever. We don't know what it looks like, anything about the boss fight, anything about the boss room. It is going to be entirely a surprise, so I'm definitely looking forward to that. But before we end off the video, let's go ahead and touch on death mechanics and how those are going to work in Raids 3. First up, there are 0 safe deaths. So if you're a hardcore Iron Man or a hardcore group Iron Man, if you die anywhere in Raids 3, whether you're in one of the challenge rooms or in one of the boss fights, you will lose your status. Deaths will work kind of similar to how they do in TOB. If you die individually, I imagine there's going to be like a spectating/waiting thing, because every member of your team does have to die in the same room for it to count as an actual wipe. And in another way, it's similar to TOB, is there's going to be a chest just outside Tombs of Amascut where you can collect your items. But one very important aspect is without invocations turned on, that chest is going to allow you to reclaim your items for free. That right there is everything you know about the bare bones basics on how the death mechanics are going to work in Raids 3. Obviously, there is a little bit more details that come with that, considering there are invocations that greatly impact dying as an entire team, how many times you're allowed to wipe, and things of that nature. For example, depending on which invocations you do have turned on, Getting wiped as a full team and having to collect your items from the chest can result in you claiming them for upwards of 500k depending on the GE's total value. But one very unique aspect of these death mechanics is it is actually going to allow players to very easily learn specific bosses. The one thing about Raids 3, it is very much choose your own path, so you get to pick any of the 4 bosses to do first. Maybe you're struggling with Akkha, maybe you're struggling with Kephri. Technically, you can go into a solo raid, try out just that specific boss, and when you do die, just claim your items back for free with no invocations turned on, and then have a go straight back at it. And technically, you wouldn't even have to do that in just a solo. You could do it with a few members or even with your entire team that you're just practicing with. This death system allows you to literally practice any individual boss you want, realistically with no downside but your supplies. But with that, that's everything I wanted to share in this video. Hopefully you guys found it a little helpful. If you did, consider dropping it a like. Hit that subscribe button if you're not already, and I'll see you guys in a couple days with the release of Raids 3.